My name is Svante Einarsson. I'm working for DNV since 2014. Already from the beginning, I was part of a team pioneering maritime cybersecurity services, standards, and resilience towards our customers across the different vessel segments for operators, managers, yards, and vendors. I'm very excited that we are now a big organization of over 500 people working on cybersecurity resilience for different industries. I myself am heading the Maritime Cybersecurity Department with specialists in testing and consultancy services. And since this year, we also have now managed detection and response capabilities in our team. I'm very excited today to be able to share some knowledge about what we have learned in the past and also some of the researchers report that we were able to gather by interviewing key stakeholders in the maritime industry, as well as getting feedback from an 800 participant survey. We have an ever more increasing digitalization of our world today, and that is also the case in the maritime industry. For this to be possible, we are also interconnecting ourselves with different systems and different stakeholders on a daily basis. There's also a drawback from a security perspective. The more we interconnect different systems and the more digitalized they are, also the greater the threat potentially can be. We see this particularly in the case of operational technology, or so-called OT. These systems on board are responsible for navigation, propulsion, power management, and so on, and can risk the life of people, the environment, and the assets. The more connected these systems are, the greater chance it is, or risk it is, that actually a breach will occur. So when that occurs, it also has the potential to spread further and faster than ever before. So with these bold ambitions, the industry is also unlocking new vulnerabilities. So let me start by also talking about cybersecurity in general. We realize that this is a growing interest in a digitalized world, especially if we want to harvest these digital transformation and also advantages with decarbonization. But some questions will rise then to us in the maritime industry. So what are the threats that are currently evolving? What are the key challenges, for instance? What is the industry prioritizing at the moment? What is driving and holding back our progress? Which steps can the maritime industry take to tackle these emerging cyber risks? And I'm delighted to provide you some insights from here on. First of all, we have the Russian invasion to Ukraine. This actually raising the awareness and raising the understanding how important also especially critical infrastructure is to us today. Soon after, but also before the Russian invasion in February 2022, Russia targeted different parts of the Ukraine critical infrastructure, but it also spread into other dimensions and other areas of Europe. We also see the same part and type of threat into the maritime domain. We have these geopolitical conflicts and state actors targeting disruption of trade and critical infrastructure. And these are different than other attacks that are more purely criminal activities, where the attacker is focusing on extortion of money. We also have the aspect that maritime is and commercial shipping is so important for our globalized trade and logistics. It's a motor for our complete wellness in the world today. This implies also a huge risk for coordinated cyber attacks on commercial shipping, both that we are a part of this critical infrastructure as well as we are providing this link towards globalized trade. In parallel to that, we see greater connectivity in the maritime industry. We also see how threat actors are more increasingly active. The number of malicious tools are increasing on a continuous basis, also the ones that are targeted towards OT systems. And we see how the different actors, may it be the national states, or may it be the hacktivists or the criminal guys that are out there just for a pure ransomware kind of payout, that their enthusiasm is staggering, their resources are enhancing, and their tools are being even better made in order for them to achieve their goals. The maritime industry is also waking up to the new threat, and cyber is actually recognized many times as a growing safety and business risk potential as well. The maritime professionals that we surveyed believe that cyber security risk are considered as important as health and safety risk in the industry. We see that also by the priority of some senior management for some organizations, and that it's an increasing topic on their agendas to address this as a business risk. But at the same time, there is a significant room for improvements where before we can say that really cyber security is treated on the same high level and at the same multitudes and taking time and resources on the agenda of these management and these companies as it is for other safety topics. And also, I think that the action and the priorities that we see in the industry at the moment are maybe focused rather to the IT part of our vessels than on the OT side of cybersecurity. Let me now also talk about some key challenges that we have seen throughout the result in our research. First of all, funding, as well as resource issues, ensuring compliance, access to talent, organizational culture, and also supply chain vulnerabilities are some of the topics that came out. Less than half of the maritime professionals that were part of our study think that organizations in the maritime industry is investing enough today, especially in the OT domain. And that is also seen then as the greatest barrier for implementing proper cyber resilience. And if investments are there, then the questions also is has it been prioritized to where the spendings are needed the most or not. Secondly, there is a talent shortage and there's a workforce that is vulnerable to cybersecurity at the moment. There are two different aspects here. We urgently need some cybersecurity champions or officers that are dedicated and experts in the domain of maritime, of vessels, how they operate, how IT and OT functions, as well as cybersecurity. And they can champion this and spread this out to the complete fleet and their organizations. But also secondly, we need a better training and training that fits the completeness of the crew, so that they know what they are supposed to do and not supposed to do. Training of awareness where they can be seen also not just being the operator, but in some cases even being the friendly threat actor. And it might be surprising to see that our research actually show that the maritime professional worry most about the likelihood of staff becoming an unintentional threat actor through human error, more than they are worried about the criminal activities of a hacker. Aging assets and supply chains create vulnerabilities, and that is because in the maritime industry we are so dependent on different multiple layers of supply chain vendors, their delivery of IT, OT, hardware and software equipment to our vessels. And when, for instance, if we look, it's not just about the new building assets, as they, of course, need to be integrated into bigger systems, and they have how one system is interacting with another one, and how one particular threat or vulnerability actually can threaten another system that has nothing to do with it from the beginning. But it also relates to ships and operations, where we see today, for instance, we have customers that install scrubber systems on their vessels in order to be meeting environmental goals and so on. And these systems are modern systems that have IP network cables included. And all of a sudden, we have an interface to old systems which are not hardened, which are not cyber resilient in the same manner as these newer versions of systems that are being interconnected on the same maybe 10 or 20-year-old vessel. The last challenge we saw in the research we did was that maritime professionals believe that industry lacks experience for building an effective, repetitive approach to cybersecurity. And a lot of the reason behind this is that the industry is not transparent and information sharing enough in order to create this type of knowledge and providing and supporting each other in order to build these capabilities and understanding over time. So what we really need there is a more effective sharing of information and lessons learned. And that also goes in the place of not just how to do proper cyber resilience and how to deploy standards and into practical working habits, but also how we share information about vulnerabilities or incidents. And here we see that the regulator can play a good role enforcing this as a mandatory aspect and then sharing out anonymized information to the industry. In our research, we also covered the topic of regulations, as this is on many people's lips of today. Of course, it is also becoming more strict in our sector, not just other critical infrastructure sectors, but also in the maritime domain. And even more regulations is soon on the horizon. Already in 2017, IMO came out with the guidance of maritime cyber risk management that was enforced from 2021. The guidance made it practically mandatory to include cyber risk management into the safety management systems of vessels. The whole guidance is risk-based requirements. It also enforces that you need to have someone responsible, you need to have training, you need to have done a risk assessment and so on. And it refers to best practices within the shipping industry in order to handle cyber resilience at the best. In reality, I have seen personally and also my colleagues that these requirements have been handled very differently. Some of our customers are just doing the bare minimum, only taking a few references into their management system, limiting the training to the bare minimum and so on. But others have also really done a thorough work in order to integrate it into the management system overall, to appoint someone that is responsible for the whole fleet, that rolls out this and champions this as a part of a new culture of the company, and even goes so far that they have sought for certification against standards like ISO 27001 or DNV's own cybersecurity class notation. Also, already next year in 2024, we will have the International Association of Classification Society, or IACS, new cybersecurity rules that are applicable for yards and vendors that are building new vessels and vessels that are contracted from next year and onwards. It will be part of ship classification societies to include that into their base rules. And enforce, therefore, security by design in the systems themselves, but also the network and the whole vessel. And this is then, of course, something that we as classification society will need to follow up on and test, and both at the commissioning of the vessel, but as well then into the operation of the vessel through our surveyors. Furthermore, there are also other regulations, such as the EU Directive on Security of Network and Information Systems, NIS2, and other similar regulations to critical infrastructure that protects also specifically in the maritime domain, ports as well as floating storage regasification units, for instance, as well as the largest shipping companies in our continent here in Europe, but also similar activities are done in the US. We have seen that these regulations have been quite the driver, or the top driver, to be quite honest, in the industry for many years now, and will probably remain the same also in the coming few years. It's a strong motivator. It unlocks funds, and also it really improves the cyber resilience of the whole industry. There are plenty of benefits here. We build trust towards different stakeholders, and we are applying baseline on cyber resilience capabilities. But we also need to be even more proactive in the maritime industry than what these compliance towards regulations provide. And that is especially true since we are talking about a ever-changing, very quickly changing threat actor out there. The tools and the motivations are already in a continuous development, as well as our own assets are, as I said before, more and more integrated. There are updated systems with new software, new capabilities, and this goes at an ever increasing speed. So in order to be really at pair of a challenge, we see the strive towards this baseline cybersecurity resilience and fulfilling the requirements in the regulation, as well as striving for adaptation and continuous improvement, deploying, for instance, penetration testing, or even a monitoring service for your OT equipment to see where are the data going, what is a potential threat actor that is already deployed into my system. That way we will be better able to cope with the challenge in the future. Okay, that also leaves me with providing you with 6 recommendations in order to enhance the cybersecurity resilience, as well as reap the benefits of digitalization today in the maritime industry. First of all, I like to recommend that we see cybersecurity not just as a pure cost, but also as an enabler of digitalization, and having the commercial benefit and enabling decarbonization, for instance, or safety optimizations. Cybersecurity leaders should be part of these wider strategic conversation from day one in order to mitigate the risk from the beginning, but also to see that the investment into cybersecurity is not just this cost of a business, but it's also an investment in confidence, competitiveness, as well as innovation. The second recommendation is that to treat cyber risks just like we are treating safety risks. We know from the past, and this has been part of our industries for a long time ago, that we raise our hand, we blow the whistle if we feel that something is unsafe, and we cannot follow safety protocols or they are being compromised. The same mantra should also be adopted for cybersecurity, and this is really also a cause to release larger fundings and larger budgets into patching these holes and making the gap between safety and cyber risks going up in pair with each other again. So cybersecurity is a growing safety risk, and perhaps even a greater risk for the coming decade. I also want to recommend that we intensify our work of sharing information and experience with each other, both when it comes to being able to make better standards, but also into the implementation phase. What does work? What is acceptable for a crew? What is not too tedious work and too complicated in order to make our practices and our operations secure? But it's also something that it's willingness, and we see the advantages in our daily operations. Openness about sharing our good, our successes in that sense, but also what we are not good at, and the incidents and other flaws that we have in our organization. That together can really provide a more secure future for us all. I also want to put at heart that you look at regulation as the baseline requirements that your organization is implementing, and then expanding the scope as well on a risk-based approach in order to meet the ever-emerging and changing threats and your own assets and your own operations. To really think about the tighter regulations and as an opportunity, of course, to meet that, but also to go the extra mile and think about what are the other risks that might not be covered in these regulations. Organizations that do not do this practice of both, I would say, risk falling behind and risk leaving larger chunks of vulnerabilities open to be attacked. Also, rethink how you manage supply chain vulnerabilities, including cybersecurity in the procurement and developing processes of a new product, hardware, software, is always going to be more effective than trying to adopt and mitigate the risk later on. And do remember also that your suppliers might be also helping you in managing the cybersecurity. So turning potential weakness into something that could be a strength, collaborating with them and making sure that we are facing the challenge together. And my final recommendation is to focus a lot of your attention towards training. Train up a new task force of cybersecurity experts that are highly dedicated into their different disciplines, maybe specific to a system, but also on the network itself, as well as deploy interactive and motivating awareness campaigns to your general staff and crew. Make sure that they are engaged and understand that the threat is changing, and deploy different types of training that is purposeful and fit to their operation and daily activities. Thank you for the opportunity to let me share about DNV's experience in this domain. I really hope you have learned something and that you found it interesting and inspiring to address the cybersecurity in the maritime domain. Together, we can face a challenge and make the cyber domain in the maritime industry a safer place.